Hello everybody, today I'll be going over the ILM trade journal built on Google Sheets. I really do believe this trade journal is the best trade journal you can get your hands on, especially being completely free of cost. The softwares like TradeZilla which charge you money but they also require you to link your trading account. It's really useful, but I really do believe I've maximized the user input to output ratio. So today in this video, I'll be going over how to use this sheet exactly and the things you need to keep in mind while using this sheet to avoid any issues or inaccuracies in your data or reports. So to begin with, this is your welcome sheet. This is the the first sheet when you open this Google Sheet. This sheet, I'm the owner of this. If you want to use this for yourself, you'll have to click this link, or I'll leave the link to the sheet in the description of this video. You have to land on this page, and when you're on this page, you'll have to go to File and make a copy for yourself. It'll make a copy in your Google Drive, and from there you can use this for yourself. Once it's there, you'll have to delete all these other sheets except this one, because this is the only one with the empty data. I've left this one for template, so you can simply drag this down and use it for your own trades. But this is the one you should be using. You can still have Playboy's trades here, but they won't be updated because the Google Sheet is sitting in your drive, right? The only sheet which will be updated with the latest info will be the same link which you're currently on, this Google Sheet, which is owned by me. So just if you want to keep an eye on Playboy's trades, then you can save this link. But if you want to use this for yourself, I recommend you to delete all the other sheets. You can right click and delete. That's how you do it. So delete all these sheets and just have the blank template. You can rename it, obviously. You can right click and rename to whatever you want it to be. I recommend you to follow the same format here. ILM, I've built this sheet especially keeping ILM in mind. So you won't have, I haven't added any columns for, like there's trade generals where you can you can also have a column where you choose which asset you're trading. So instead of having, just like how you have the entry date where you put multiple entry dates for each of your trades, you can also have a column here which tells you where you can input. If you've traded Ethereum, you've traded gold, you've traded Nasdaq, so you can input that data. But I've chosen not to do that because with ILM you're only trading a few assets, because you don't need 100 different cryptocurrencies or 100 different stocks. You can choose to do that. You can do that, but this is how Playboy does his ILM, and I've made this spreadsheet for him, keeping him in mind. So that's how we do it here. You can of course add a sheet for every asset you trade, which is how I recommend, or you can simply add a column. You can make a copy of this. You can insert a column on right, and that will make a column where you can just copy paste these also, and you can input the assets you're trading, and you can use a single sheet to track your entire trading instead of having multiple sheets for multiple assets you trade. So that's the first thing. And also I'll be making constant updates to the sheet. I keep telling myself that I'm done with the sheet, but I get a new idea I get a new idea, and I keep adding more tables, more graphs, and more this and that. So don't be surprised if the sheet looks different from what you're seeing in this video, because I keep constantly updating, and if I make any drastic major changes, then I'll leave a link to the updated video guide in the description or the pinned comment, so make sure you check that out. So Next, like I've said already, I've made this keeping in mind that you would input as less data to get the most amount of output. So all these columns are the only columns you need to input: the times of the trade when you enter a trade, and when you exit, the direction of the trade, and the profit or loss in RR. And these two, they're not used in any calculations. They're completely optional. So these columns from B to G, these 6 columns are all the input you need to do, and you will get all this beautiful data, all this data just from those 6 columns. There's also extra data if you want to see. So how the sheet works is, it takes the data from here, it processes that into this, and we have graphs based on all this data. So if you input this, and you're looking back on your trades, if that data is not enough for you, what you can do is you can select a row. Let me actually resize the sheet. Yeah, so you can select a row, you can scroll to the side, and you have more data specifically of that trade. So this trade was taken during the Asian session, on a Wednesday on the first week of June. And when this trade was taken, the entire cumulative R collected till that point was 25 R, and the 7-week moving average was at 21. And all this data, it's not particularly useful, but you can it's available for you to view if you would like. Don't make any changes to this part of the sheet. These first few rows are the only inputs you need to do. Everything else is calculated for you. And I've said that these two are optional. You can choose to fill these up or not, because there's no calculations made on this. The sheet only takes the numbers from these columns and processes them. You can also exclude these 2 columns. That's how it is by default on the blank template. Oh, it's not. So let me do that. So I'm hiding these 2. Let's actually leave it out. But you can choose to hide these columns. Let me do that to demonstrate. Yeah, you can hide them. And all you have to do is input these 4 columns, because out of 6 columns, 2 of those are the entry, the exit time and date. But I don't think they contribute much to the stat pad. So only a few columns here will be based on the calculations on the exit date and time. But I will leave that there. You can hide it if you don't really bother about these last few columns. I think the most important data is all this stuff, which is to know when at which point of the day and which point of the week is the best time to trade. So I think that's more valuable. So if you're okay with increasing your user input by 50%, then you can. It's up to you. So just putting it out there, especially I'm saying this especially when you're backtesting. As you can see, you can also use the sheet for backtesting. I'll demonstrate how you can use this for backtesting even better. But in this example, for Playboy, I have also uploaded the exit date and time. But if you're back testing a lot and you're going through a lot of trades, then you don't really need this trade. It's a lot of work. So you can just choose to input these 2, especially for back testing. You may choose, you can have the entry and exit time for your live trades, but for the back testing, I recommend you just skip these 2, just hide them. You'll miss out on a few columns here, which I don't think are really necessary, but it's up to you. It's completely up to you. You can choose what you want. But that's how I do it for my backtests. Next. If you observe, there's a black arrow for a few cells. That's the note I've left for that particular cell. So these, for the ones which are pretty self-explanatory, I have not done that. But for the ones which might confuse a few people, I have left a note. So for break-even win rate, you might not know what that is at first glance. So hence, I've left a note. This metric takes your R of the average trade, which is wait a minute, R of the average. So yeah, this one, it takes this data and calculates what your win rate should be. So your win rate will be dynamic. The break-even win rate is basically the win rate you need to aim in order for you to break even on your trades, and that is based on the average R you collect per trade. The more you collect per trade, then the lower you can afford your win rate to be. For example, if your win rate is this actually takes the average winning. Okay. So yeah, coming back to what I was saying, if your win rate is if your average win is, if your win rate is 50%, then you need to win if your risk to reward is 1 hour on average, then you need to win at least 50% of your trades in order for you to break even. And if your average trade is 2 hour, then you need to win at least 33%. Your win rate should be at least 33% for you to break even. So you can see that Playboy's average win is slightly above 2.5 hour. Hence, his break-even win rate, it's slightly less than 30%, 33%. So the higher your RR is, the lower your break-even win rate is, which is basically the win rate you should be at. It should be more than that for you to break even and make profit. And clearly you can see Playboy is well about that. So coming back to talking about the sheet. So I've left the notes for a few cells here. I thought a few people might get confused by this, so I've left a note here too. Max consecutive R1 and max consecutive R lost. So this is basically the losing streak, which is what I've left in the note. So you can see Playboy hasn't lost much in a losing streak. It's only been minus 2R at the peak, and his winning streaks are much. So this is different from winning streak. It does not calculate the number of trades. We have a separate column for that. Max consecutive wins. There you go. So the way this is different from this is this only calculates the number of trades which you consecutively won, but this calculates the maximum consecutive R1. So you might win more on 4 wins than 5 wins, because each one of those 4 wins was much higher. So that's what this tries to do. Here it is 14 hours. So there was a point in Playboy's curve, which I think PNL curve, which I think is this, where Playboy hasn't lost a single hour and he's made 14 hours consecutively. So that's what these two are for. And I've left more notes here. These, you can see your session timings. I've only left the American timings here and not any other. I've had that before, but I removed it because of the daylight savings. It messes up a lot. Not every country follows it, and the ones that do follow it, they change clocks during different times of the year. So it's all messed up. So I'm only following the American times here. So you can see those times, and here you can see what week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5 is. And I've left more notes here for the ones in this column which I don't think you really need, but I've still left it explaining these columns, their purpose. So yeah, next, when you want to enter a new trade, you don't want to do this. You don't want to manually type. It's too much work, right? You don't want to manually type it all out. So an easier way to do is by selecting this and dragging it down, and now you just need to change the values. It's much easier than typing the whole thing by yourself. So you just change the values to whatever it is. For the time one, you can choose to type it out, something like that. So yeah, that's just a quick small tip to save a few more seconds of your trade journaling. Let me just undo that. Cool. And this is another important one, because I've built this for Playboy first. I've built all the time settings, all the calculations that take place are based on PST. So just make sure that you enter all the times in PST when you're in. If you're entering, I know this can be a hassle for a few in different time zones, but it would be just way too complicated for me to add a dynamic variable for different time zones, which can take the user input of time zones and calculate and change all the time settings of this. So yeah, basically it messes up a lot. So I chose to keep it simple and base it on only one time zone, which is PST, because that's the time zone Playboy is based in. So you are supposed to enter all the times in PST. Unfortunately, you don't need to go to Google and manually convert all the times to enter here. You can simply, when you're in your trading, let me actually demonstrate that. Let me open my trading view. So when you're in your trading, you can change the settings. You can change the time from your time zone to Playboy's time zone, which is PST, so that you can enter the trades here to get the most accurate data. So here you can see it's you can change your time zone here, whatever time zone you're in. It should be UTC -7 Los Angeles. So yeah, just make sure. You can choose to have some other, let's say you live somewhere else and you take a trade here. Just that. You can see that it's 5:30 on minus UTC 5, but once I change it to -7, it changes to 3:30. So just input the times in PST, because that's the time calculations of everything are based on PST. So the Asian session calculation, so yeah, everything is based on PST. So just make sure to enter the times in PST and nothing else. Next, I've also added a warning sign here, 2 warning signs. This one's not really a warning sign. It just tells you what I've already taught you guys, which is to drag down. I've left a few tips here and there. You can see I've left a small tip to make it even quicker for you to generate your trades. So that's the warning sign number 1, which is not really a warning sign. Once you fill up the second row, it disappears, as you can see. So yeah, that's the first warning sign. And the second one is if you mess up the time settings here. If you say here in this example, the entry time should always be before the exit time, right? But sometimes when you're crunching through a lot of data, it's easy for you to mess up, and that would output inaccurate data, and we don't want that. So if you, for example, if your exit date or time is before the entry time, which doesn't make sense, which is inaccurate, you have this huge error sign which pops up, which tells you that you messed up and you need to make sure that they're in the chronological order. The date and time data entered is invalid. Please input the correct values and make sure they're in a chronological order. So and it won't go away till you fix and change it to the right date. It has to be chronological. The exit date has to be after the entry date. And the same for time. Say I do that. Doesn't make sense, right? I've taken the trade at 14 at the 14th hour and I've entered at the 13th hour. I've entered the trade at 2 o'clock and I've exited the trade at 1 o'clock. It doesn't make sense. So it's mathematically inaccurate. So that's why it shows you a huge error sign. And another error is if you mess up the dates. So for example, if I I've already gone over it. If the date is inaccurate and the time is mathematically inaccurate, it will show you a huge error sign and you need to verify it again. So yeah, I thought that would be helpful, so I just put that there because I've seen a few of you mess up the timings and later when the data didn't make sense you had to go back and correct it. So just added that warning sign. Next, just another tip for you all. This is from backtesting. If you're using the sheet for backtesting, just another trick. So you go to TradingView, you go to the replay feature, Ethereum 5 minutes, just make sure it's on that, and you click on random bar. You can choose to you can select a bar and scroll back, but they've recently added this random bar feature, which I think is pretty cool, which just takes you to a random place in the chart you don't know, you have no idea. So I think this is the way you should properly practice. Adjust the chart. Boom, there you go. This is taken back us to March 2023, which is a long time ago, right? So you just do all your analysis here. It stays just like, it's exactly like how you would do it in your real time. Say you take a long entry here. This is not ILM, but it actually makes sense to take a short here more than a long. So let's do that because we've taken out this liquidity, right? Yeah, so whatever. You just take an entry rate here, stop loss around there, target that. I don't know. Not here for the trade ideas, you're here for the trading, you're here for the sheet explanation, right? So you've got your trade idea there, and now you play the bars forward using shift right arrow key, but you can also use the buttons here. See if it works out or not. Okay, yeah, so that's a loss. And the way you input the data back into the sheet is you take the entry time here, adjust the drawing tool properly. Now you can get the entry time here, as you can see at on the y-axis, on the x-axis. It's 23rd March 2023, 250. So that's what you input here, and the candle which stopped us out and the candle which we exited is this 745 on. So you input that here, and this was a short, so you input that here, and it's a loss, so -1. You can choose to add any notes, any explanations for the loss, and I recommend you to press Ctrl S, or you can go to the camera and copy link. You just paste that here. Boom, done. That's it. That's all you need to do to backtest all your trades. Not all your trades, one of your trades. But you keep doing that, you rinse and repeat, you take more trades, you input all that data. Again, like I said, you can hide these two and just input these two and these two for the most time efficient backtesting. And once you have a bunch of data, I recommend having at least 30 to 50 trades in your backtested data for you to have the reliable reports here. And once you do all that, you'll have the beautiful looking sheets and graphs like this. Again, I don't want to go over each and every one of these cells because this video would end up being too long for that. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, just play around with the sheet, have fun. um, you can ask me in the chat, and you can also ask ChatGPT to if you have any issues or you want to add any feature for yourself. I'd be curious if you want to add a new feature to the sheet. Please do message me, because if that's a cool idea and I can add that to my sheet, then we can help we can help everybody, right? So next, you can use US dollars instead of hours here. So instead of I know some of you don't care about hours, and all you care about is the dollar amount of trades. So this sheet is perfectly compatible with that. So instead of inputting hours, all you have to do is do $100 or whatever, just do that, or minus 150. It works perfectly fine. All this data will also work with if you replaced hours with US dollars. So yeah, that's another thing you can use the sheet for. But let's just have the minus 1 hour back. Okay. Next, what to do with fees? Okay, there are two methods. So especially for ILM trading, you will end up paying a large amount of your trading profits for fees, because you're scalping and the positions tend to be a larger size. So instead of making 2 hour, you probably only made 1.9 hour. So on trading view, it might say you made, on the drawing of the trading view, it might say you made 1.9 hour. But it might actually be only 1.7 or 1.8. So there's two methods to deal with that. You don't input the R numbers from TradingView. You go back to your broker and you get the actual numbers, and you calculate the R's based on that to input that here. So say my 1 hour is $100, and the TradingView says I made 2 hour, which is $200. But I check my broker and it's only $190 in profit. So I input 1.9 hour here instead of 2 hour. So that's one way to go about it if you want to consider for fees. Because we were only testing the model here, fees were not considered for this sheet. But if you would like to for yourself, then you can do that. That's the method one. And the second method, especially for your losses, is to not actually risk your true 1 hour. If let's go back to using the same example. If my 1 hour is $100, then that's my true 1 hour, but I only put $90 at risk on my broker when I set the stop loss in my broker. I'm only risking $90. So if my stop loss does hit, if all the with the fees included, it would be around $100, right? So that's two methods to go about it. You can either choose to risk less and not have any major changes to the sheet, or you can put the true numbers from your broker on the sheet. So that's two ways to have the R metrics used, R numbers. You can adjust that based on your fees. Lastly, there's one issue with this sheet which I have to mention. So this is specifically for the candlestick chart. As you can see, we need OHLC values and the number of trays on the y-axis here. One issue I have faced, and I spent a lot of time, I spent so much time talking to ChatGPT and trying a bunch of different ways, but I couldn't figure out a way to automate this AZ column, which is responsible for showing the number of days on the candlestick chart. It's not really detrimental, because even if you don't have the numbers here, it still shows you the candlestick chart, but you simply won't have the you simply won't have the labels here. So you have to manually do this. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a way to automate it. So on the blank template, I have given, so it's actually I've hidden these columns as well, and the way you unhide it by clicking the arrow here. So I've given 10 days already, but you'll have to update it manually. If you don't, then it will look something like what I just showed. It'll look something like this. Still perfectly functional, but you won't have these labels. So if you want to have the labels, you have to manually keep updating it. As you can see, Playboy has just entered a trade here, and we just heard 70R. So once he's inputted a new trade, we have to add a day here. For every day, you'll have to add a label. You have to add a day there. So I've left 10 days here, and once you go beyond 10 days, you'll have to drag it down. It's not a lot of work. You just simply have to drag it down, and that will add more days to your column here. So that's the only issue that's the only part of the sheet I could not automate. Maybe if I do find a way to automate it, I'll surely update it. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. It's very complicated, and there's a lot more features which I think I'm forgetting. But I think that should be around 90% of the features explained. You can play around. If I forget anything, I'll leave the rest in the description or the pinned comment. And if I make any major changes to the sheet, I'll make a new video explaining the new sheet with the major changes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Have fun backtesting, have fun trading ILM. I wish you a great success, and bye bye.